Welcome back to the Virtual Summit, everybody. Sujin Patel here of Mailshake. I've got the chief door opener here, Karen Kopp. Karen, thank you for joining. And really, I'm more curious about where this name comes from.
Well, we've been in business for a long time. This is our 20th year in business. We're very proud about that. And I was changing my business card one day, and it said president on it. And the person I was sitting with said, "You're not the president, you're the chief door opener," because that's what you guys do. You get your clients in the door with their prospects for the important meetings. And that's where it came from, and it stuck. Our primary service that we're known for best is the door opener service. So it kind of carries that same theme.
I love it. So what we're going to talk about today is the moment of yes, and how to use that to write better outreach copy. So what the heck does that mean? Like, what is the moment of yes? Let's define that first.
Yeah, sales messaging is extremely important, as you know, when it comes to reaching out to prospects. It's critically important. When you say the right words to the right prospects, magic happens. The doors open sooner and the sales close sooner. But the big question is, how do you figure out what to say? And so that is this moment of yes. Like, what are all the factors that are going on behind the scenes in a prospect's work life, in a prospect's personal life, that would make that person at that moment say, you know what, I really do need to talk to someone new, and I'm not going to wait another minute to do it. And that is the moment of yes. We have a trademark process for developing this. So every one of our door opener clients who comes to us so that they can outsource getting in the door with the executive level decision makers for them. It's a done for you service. They have to go through this so that we could figure out what is that moment in time and what are the words and phrases that would have that right prospect say, yes, I want to have a meeting now. I don't want to put it off. Let's go ahead and put it on the calendar.
I love that. Yeah. And, I was reading up on this process a little bit before we chatted and before this interview. And I think it sounds like it's the extra step here that can change everything out, like underneath it, around it. So let's say, you're writing outreach copy, you're getting started. What are the steps that you do beforehand or through this process?
Right. So that's a really great question. And it's great that you're even asking that, because a lot of people will write outreach copy without bothering to think about, what do I want to say? What is it that I could say that would be so compelling that somebody would say yes? So I would say step one is to realize that there is a difference between marketing copy and sales copy. That's the first piece of it. You can't use what you have on your website, what you have in your advertising, and just plunk that into an email and expect that to work, especially for a senior level decision maker. So what we like to do first is to take this wide group of prospects and narrow it down. How do we reduce the size of the prospect group by adding filters, so that when we have that very narrow group of people, and it's okay to have several different narrow groups of people, but when you have narrow group of people, that you can say something that's so important to that prospect that it would capture their attention. So one of the things that we do, and I'll give you some of our X factor, the secret sauce that goes into our sales messaging, is we will ask our clients, the representative A-level clients, and now we have to remember, if somebody has aspirational prospects, they're not going to go and ask their clients, right? If they are going after more of the same clients, then we will ask their clients, what was happening in your world when you said yes to this meeting? What was happening for you personally? What was happening professionally that made you feel that the people who you already knew, along with your current vendor, if you had one solving the problem, or if you were solving the problem internally, that those people weren't going to be part of your solution moving forward, that you needed to go outside that sphere and find somebody new who had a solution? And then why did you choose that particular vendor to have a conversation with at that moment? What was it about that? And so when we ask several different representative A-level clients, we're tending to hear similar themes. And a lot of times our clients are not aware of why they were selected. They're aware of why they're doing a good job, but not aware of why they were selected to have the initial conversation in the first place. So it's really important to ask those key questions. The third thing is, a lot of times people are just trying to figure out why they're different. But if you think about it, why you're different is irrelevant. Nobody cares why you're different. They only care why you are of more value to them. And if you can articulate that in very short, concise phrases and, in a very short, concise email, you are more likely to get responses from that. And that's part of the moment of yes. It's not the whole moment of yes, but it's part of it.
I love that. I mean, I think if one, always talking to your customers and like hearing it from the horse's mouth of why
Right.
they took that yes is far greater than anything anybody at that company could say, right? The other thing that really hit home for me was that you said it's not, if you think about like what makes you different or
Yeah,
better, that's like very me focus. If you think
that's
about
right.
what's great value to the sale, like to the customer, that's very them and customer focus. And ultimately people don't care about themselves. They care about themselves, not like they don't care about Nike. They want to run, right?
Yes.
They fall in love with that brand. That's a different story. That's maybe marketing. And that actually brings me to my next question is, you mentioned like marketing content or marketing stuff doesn't just work for sales. And it sounds like there's two different personas here, right? Like the sales persona and then the marketing persona, even if it's the same customer.
Yes, and so it's important to note that those two are not out of alignment with each other. It's just that the sales one is a smaller segment of it. So, as an example, let's say that you're targeting it's a software as a service solution that targets large healthcare facilities, right? So you're looking to get in usually with the HR department, sometimes the ops department. And so there are a couple of different titles that will be right amongst a wide group of these kinds of nursing facilities, just as an example. So that might be your marketing persona, and what situations do they face? What do they respond to? Things like that. But from a sales perspective, what we might do is we might take that wide group of prospects and add additional filters to find out which groups of those prospects might feel more urgency. And urgency is a big factor and it's a trend. So which ones are feeling more urgency, who would take a meeting sooner? Which ones would feel that you as a company are the exact right solution for them? They wouldn't take a step without you being part of their decision set. So when we look at narrowing this down, and let's say we have a solution that really helps somebody who's in that role, the CHRO role or an ops role, who has a nursing background, just as an example. So what we might do is put on an additional filter of this big prospect group. Let's focus for this one outreach initiative only those in that executive level position who also have nursing as part of their background. And that way, when you draft the copy, you can put something that's geared specifically to them, like a subject line that says, only a CNA would know, right? So that they know that it's part of what they would know from their previous background, but you're making a stronger, more personal connection when you go to write the outreach copy.
I love it. Yeah, I think it's that like you've kind of dug past to like, okay, who the persona is. You're thinking through the right persona, and then factors that kind of contribute to accelerating that process. Is that right?
Right, because what you want to do is make the more general more specific and is in as personal a way possible. And so what you're doing is you're already doing that extra layer of research. So your prospect's going to know you took a look at them ahead of time. You
Mm-hmm.
thought about them ahead of time as an individual. And then you wrote something, or if you're calling them, you said something that was designed specifically for them because you thought about them as an individual. What we're finding from the 20 years we've been in business, things have changed as it comes to getting in the door and getting those meetings with the senior level decision makers. And so one of the things that has changed is the level of personalization that's required in order to capture the attention of a senior level executive. And so the more you can do that, the more likely that person is to invite you in for a meeting.
Gotcha. That makes complete sense. I want to step back a second and talk about I want to dig in a little bit to what makes you better as a service or offering, what makes your company better, and then how can somebody get more value from that, right? Because I think that's where people get stuck, right? Like you figured out all this stuff, you're going to write the content, and like you end up writing it, and it turns out to be very me focused. How can people break that habit? Or like maybe you have an example of like, and you can use maybe Mailshake or whatever company that can help kind of articulate this point more.
Yeah, so most people, when they're doing an outreach initiative using a Mailshake platform, or even if they don't, they're just writing emails on their own. It's really what we find out there in the market is ready, fire, aim, as opposed to ready, aim, fire. Mm-hmm. What's really important before you sit down to write that copy is to think really carefully about that target. Most people don't define their target groups in as narrow a way as they could in order to create words and phrases that will be a slam dunk against that group of people. And then there's the testing it piece. Who's testing it out there in the market and saying to a representative group of people, if you were to see this, how would you feel about that? Would you feel that I'm talking just to you? Or do you feel that this is so general that you wouldn't really respond to something like that? Mm-hmm. Another piece of moment of yes is figuring out what the objections are going to be that you're going to face. Why would somebody not want to take a meeting with you? Why would somebody not feel urgency around meeting you? Because there are certain times when you can take the answers for those objections and put them into your messaging right up front, and remove the whole objection from the conversation and from somebody's thought process. And so you've already answered the objection before they had a chance to feel it. And therefore, you're able to get the meetings faster.
Yeah,
the other part of that, there's one more part for people to consider, and I've seen this mistake as well, is if your sales process is predicated on having a meeting, not just calling someone and having the entire conversation, but let's say you want a meeting, you have to ask for one, and you have to tell them why that meeting would be the best decision that they would make all day. From the prospect's perspective, not your perspective. I see a lot of people writing, I would love to meet with you. I had lunch with somebody yesterday. They're telling me about an email that they sent. And that's exactly what he said. I would love to meet with you. And I said to him, I know why you would love to meet with the prospect. What I don't know is why the prospect would love to meet with you. You didn't write that in your email. Why would it be that person's best decision all day? Why would that person knock 3 people off their calendar and make room for you?
That makes complete sense. I think it's just breaking that like me habit when they send that email. It's so important. As you were saying this, I just got an email from my contact form, and somebody said, hey, I read your post on starting a career in digital marketing. I'm reading this out loud here. I'm looking to, build my career. I want to make more money. Can you help me? Can you tutor me? And I'm like, and then he's like, or the person, I'm not sure, it's a male, female, how about a Skype call tomorrow? I'm like, why? You said all the things you're going to get from this meeting. What the heck am I doing here?
That's right.
How is any part of this compelling for me? Right. But you don't go, I feel like with email and written copy, people have this they forget how to deal with human beings and talk to human beings. Like if I were to meet you at a conference, Karen, and I say, hi, Karen, I've heard of you. I heard you're the closer, right? The chief door closer.
Chief door opener.
And yeah, sorry. I'm gonna steal.
People do close once we open the doors. So it's okay to say that too.
Right. I think my point here is that if I were to go walk up to you and I said, hey, can you tell me about this, that, and the other? I really want to improve my sales. I want to get more leads. I'm not looking to hire you, but I want more information. I want stuff, right? As opposed to like, hey, Karen, how you doing? A big fan of your stuff. Like the moment of yes really changed. Just that the three words changed my perspective. I've done this. I would really want to get your take on something, and you start the conversation, and then you go from there. I think people just like blurt out stuff about themselves, and then
Right.
there's no answer there.
Right. In fact, when we're helping our clients prepare for the meetings that we get for them, because, even though people think they're good in meetings, they don't always get the best possible outcomes. So one of the things that we tell them to do in preparation is to not only think about what their objective is from that meeting, which most people, if they plan at all, they'll think about that, but really, what is your prospect's objective for the meeting? Because that's more important than yours. So let's make sure that that person gets what he or she wants out of this. It's the same thing. If you want to get in the door, what is it that that person would say yes to? Like, don't make it so difficult for people to figure out if they need to see you or not. I mean, people will say to me, my solution, it's so important for people. And the prospects may agree that their solution is important. But what they might not agree to is whether they're going to spend time and money to solve it. So if they're not going to spend time and money to solve a particular issue, then they're probably not going to feel very much urgency around knocking 3 people off their calendar and making room for that seller. So what do you do in terms of crafting words and phrases that are more likely to make that connection? And I don't see people doing that with sales messaging at all. They're writing copy, right? They have these great platforms like yours, and they're writing copy, but they're not writing that kind of copy that will really make a difference in the life of a prospect.
Absolutely. I see this way too often. That's the ready, fire, aim, right? Oh, I
Yep.
did a bunch of things and then it didn't work. Oh no.
Right.
Did you spend time thinking about what the other person's going to want, and words that take action? And your point about like asking the objective or the outcome the person on the other end is looking for. We
Right.
actually living proof, like we did that. We made that change for all of our sales demo. And that's the first question we asked. Like, hey, like what would be like a home run for you in this meeting? What do you walk away with? Like, do you just want information on what you're doing, or whatever it is? Like, we kind of help seed the questions a little bit, but that, like, I think there's a 25-30% increase in close rate just by driving the sales meeting based off what they want versus what we want.
Right. And that's the importance and the brilliance behind sales language. Like, if you say one thing, people may just sit there with, this glazed look on their face. If you say something completely different, a different set of words, one sentence, all of a sudden the glaze clears from someone's face and they say, oh, I didn't think about it like that. You're right. We do need to have this meeting. I have time for you on Thursday. And they're going to make time for you if it's something that's important to them.
Absolutely. So I want to dig in a little bit more on the personalization. So we talked about like the right words and kind of making sure you're thinking about the potential customer and the prospect. But do you have any, I guess, like, how do you think about like personalization, and how does that play into like either emails or call scripts or what have you?
Yeah. So when it comes to personalization and the executive level, as close as you could get to one-on-one is really what you want to do. And so if we use the example that we talked about with the personalization or the concept of the people who have nursing as part of their backgrounds, even though they're running a facility, right? You can do that research ahead of time. It's very identifiable in terms of finding out who did have nursing in their background, and then using that in the actual email. You can use that in your voicemail and talk about that. And so when we do that, we have different levels of it, because you can't send the same email and the same voicemail to a second time to the same person, right? You have to vary it each time. And it's really important that you deepen the conversation, you deepen the thought, you provide an example. So let's say in the first one, you might say that, that we provide this service for those facilities that are run by nurses. And here's the reason why that's important. And that may be the first email and voicemail, and we like to do those in tandem. Email alone is not as effective as email plus voice is what we've learned. Voice alone is not as effective as email and voice together. So we use those two together. But then let's say 5 days later, we'll call the same person back if we haven't heard from that person again. And now we're deepening the story. And we're saying, you remember that I sent you an email, or I left you a voicemail that says that we provide service for facilities like yours who are run by people with a nursing background. Well, our founder did that because he was in that situation exactly as you are and created the solution so that people like you don't have that situation, that problem. So we'd like to come in and talk with you about how the problems that this solves and how that may help you given your background. And then we give 3 dates and ask them to pick one that works for them. So, and let's say that that person didn't answer that email and voicemail outreach. There would be another one, let's say with a very short example of somebody who had done something that was really helpful, that worked. And so, you know, the specificity when it comes to sales messaging is critically important. And that's what needs to be woven through. But the only way you could do that is if you plan for it up front, and you do your research, and you create the personalization. The shame of personalization when it comes to autonomy now and automatic solutions for reaching prospects is that people will think that just changing the name on the top line of the email is personalization. It's not. And the decision makers don't like it. They know when they've received an email like that was sent to 1,000 other people, and they don't like it. They have told me that when I've interviewed them. They want something that was meant for them. They say, if you want a meeting with me, do your research. Show me why it would be so valuable for me to give up my free time when I already have a solution that's like yours, that's probably working okay.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. I think personalization is not name business,
Right.
role. That is public information. That's on LinkedIn, right? Go a little deeper.
Right.
Scroll through their feed and you can find a little bit of information. So that's awesome. I love the fact that you kind of talked about the cadence. Actually, the last question I was going to ask you was all around kind of the long-term kind of cadence that you have. So follow-up emails, calls, what have you. Can you just kind of walk maybe through, like, you seem to have like a lengthier follow-up or longer term cadence than most folks I've talked to. Maybe just describe that process.
Oh, yes. Okay. So that's a really important point that you brought up. And I remember a call center one time talked to me, and he's like, well, how do you get meetings? And we struggle so much to get meetings. And I asked him what they do. And he said, we take like 1,000 names. And then after 3 days, we need 1,000 more. And I said, why do you need 1,000 more? How many times are you reaching out to these people before you give up? And he said, once or twice, and then they give up. So that's not our philosophy at all. Our philosophy, as I said before, is to take that wide group of prospects and add filters to narrow them down to groups, even if it's more than one, who you are a slam dunk for. They would be crazy not to meet with you. Not just crazy, but financially irresponsible not to meet with you. That's the kind of prospect group we want. Well, when you have a prospect group that is that juicy, you want to meet with them. And it doesn't really matter if they say yes today or in 3 months or in 6 months or next year, right? You may not know where they are in their decision cycle. They might have just gotten finished buying a solution like yours last month. Like, you don't know that. That's not public information. But what you want to do is open up communication and spend your time on those people who are very right for you for particular reasons, and then stay with them. Because, if they're not your customer now, they're going to be your customer later. It's just a matter of time if you stay with them. The mistake that most people make is that they'll put a bunch of people into rotation. They're not really honed in. They don't apply these same filters that we do that make them all a slam dunk. and then they don't stay with it long enough so that somebody's interest is piqued, but they just haven't had a chance to call you back. They just haven't had a chance to return your call, and now they're off cycle and you're not communicating with them anymore. So whoever your competitor is who comes in, who's going to do a more thorough job and really care about this person and stick with them, that person's going to get the business. Because if you've identified that they're a right prospect for you, it's just a matter of time. Is it now? Is it 3 months, 6 months, next year? Like, exactly when is that? But if you stop communicating with them and they are a right prospect, it's just a matter of time before they're going to need a service like yours, and your competitor is going to come in and eat your lunch.
Absolutely. Especially if you've just primed them, right? If you set like this 5 or 6 touch points,
Right.
and you give up, or 10 touch points, you give up. What if it's like 12?
Right.
What if it was just one
Well,
more, like timing? Yeah. And
well,
right.
it is more like that. And, you know, one of the things that I find is that the managers of the sales teams are the ones saying that if you don't get them by X period of time, stop calling them. But what if they don't need you in X period of time, but something changes and they do need you 3 months after that? You're not even talking to them anymore. And all the time you spent opening up that communication is completely wasted, but your competitors will thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. It kind of reminds me on the marketing front that it takes 7 touches
Mm-hmm.
to really impact someone's buying decision, right?
Yeah.
Um, it's and especially with and sales, I think the latest stat is somewhere between 9 to 11. You know, I think
Right.
5-7 years ago it was 7. But think about how many people are selling. Think about technology, the places you
Yeah.
can be touched. I think that number is going to continue to go up. So got to put the hard work into it, right?
You do. And you have to put the right work into it, not just the hard work, because a lot of people work hard, but they don't do the right activities or with quality. As the CEO of my company, I have a certain kind of service provider who's been reaching out to me. They've probably had 4 different people. I keep the notes because then I send them to my team as an example of what not to do. But anyway, not one person from that organization that's been reaching out to me for a year with just a drip campaign has ever picked up the phone and called me. I do have issues. I have issues that need to be solved in the service area that they provide service for, but I'm not going to pick up the phone and call them. If they want a conversation with me, say something that's meaningful to just me. Do something more than send an email. You have a cadence. Send an email and then call me, and, you know, get me. Don't just call me. Then if they don't get me, I have an assistant. They can reach me through her. Like, they might not be able to get me on the phone as a CEO, but they can get her on the phone, and she controls my schedule. I do whatever she tells me to do
I
most days.
love it. Most days. Awesome, Karen. Thank you so much for participating in this. This is amazing to hear your feedback. I've got 3 or 4 things I'm going to actually talk to my sales team about right now, just while it's fresh in my head, just to take away. So thank you very much.
It was great to talk to you. Thank you for having me on. I would love to show everybody my book if you're okay with that.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is my book. It's called Biz Dev Done Right. I wrote it with my co-author, Carl Gould, and this is an Amazon bestseller. It's all about the blind spots in the sales process that keep sellers and the business leaders from the success they should have.
I love it, Karen. Thank you. And where can people, if they want to hire you or kind of find out more about your services, where can people find you?
Sure. Anybody who's looking for more meetings than they're able to get on their own, especially if they want to get in at the executive level, should definitely give me a call. They could outsource the door opening to us, or we can help them do a better job with their own sales team. Sometimes people will hire us just to write their sales message that they may put on a platform like yours. They can reach us at copconsultingusa.com, which is KOPP consultingusa.com.
Awesome. Thanks again, Karen.
Yes, great to be here.